everybody! Woohoo! It's Friday. Oh, I've missed you people so much. Last week we did not have a show, and I felt oddly weird, depressed, sad. I almost cried.
I almost did.
I did.
He did.
I told you not to tell them.
Sorry, guys.
Anyway,
you know it's true. How's
everyone doing? It looks good. Look, well, we got John, we got JD, Bob. Donna's in the house twice. She's double dipping. Mm-hmm. Hi, Diana. This is Tom's World. What's up, everyone? Glad you guys could hang out for a bit. And we're going to have a guest on in a couple minutes. I'm excited about this because he's been on before, and we're going to talk a little bit about some true crime, which is a first for this show, and then a little bit of paranormal hauntings and stories and legends and stuff like that. But first, as always, we got to go through our rules because sometimes you just need rules. So here we go. Rule number 1 is you are welcome to ask any kind of paranormal related questions or, any kind of other questions because of tonight's topic that you want. And I'll give you my opinion. My guest will give you their opinion and we'll go from there. Number 2 is I don't know everything. Neither does my guest. Neither does Divine Donna.
Oh, so, I never said I knew everything.
So we might say, I don't know. And that's perfectly fine. That's an acceptable answer and it's a good answer. When in fact you don't know something. Rule number 3 is probably the most important rule of the show is listen to Patrick Swayze and be nice. I love debate. I love discussion. Please have at it in the chat room and you can ask us questions. That's cool. But if it gets too far, if somebody starts calling names or really becomes pretty much a dick, then Donna will boot your ass out. Mm-hmm. You're gone. Never to return.
Ever.
Unless you're John Kennedy. Anyway, so let's see. Number 4, please put a Q in front of your question if you have a question.
Wait, hold. What? A question?
What?
Who would have a question?
Where's the glitter? Shut up, Bob.
I love being here, Bob.
God, I fucking glitter everywhere. Everywhere in the house. Anyway, so yeah, if you have a question, please do us a favor. Put a Q in front of it. That helps Divine Donna pick it out among the comments and gets it up on screen. And then my favorite rule, number 5, is drink up. I got some Kraken and black cherry rum in this.
Wow. Ooh. I just have Crystal Light lemonade.
All right, so everyone's here, everyone's going. We're going strong. So I'm going to bring my guest on. Let me switch to my special guest here. Let me unmute his mic and bring him on. What's up, Charles?
Hey, Kenny, how are you?
Good. Can I call you Charlie? I think I called you.
Yeah,
I said that last.
Please.
Okay, just making sure.
Charlie. Yep.
So, Charlie has been on the show before. If you remember way back when we had Kevin Manis on and we did the whole Dibbuk Box topic, Charlie joined us because he was the author of the article in which Kevin kind of outed everything. So he's coming back. We're going to talk tonight about Braley Pond in Virginia. And it's got a reputation for being haunted. It also has a tragedy associated with it. And Charlie here has a 9-part podcast coming out. Is it available yet, or is it already out?
It's not available yet. It comes out. Okay. The first episode drops October 15th.
Okay, so that's
coming out now. But
okay,
yeah.
All right. So he wanted to come on and talk about it and kind of give you a preview. We're not going to give away too many spoilers, but a preview of what's to come and more of his in-depth investigation. So I kind of got excited about it because it was like, all right, it's not just paranormal stories. It's a bit of true crime and what's going on with that. And we're going to get into it. So for the people that don't know who you are, maybe missed the last show that you were on, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a freelance journalist. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I've written for lots of different publications, and am married and have two boys and several pets. And and so this is my first podcast that I've done completely on my own, and so it was like a 3-year process. So I'm pretty excited about it.
We're popping his cherry tonight. all by himself. You are the star of the show. No pressure, but this is all on you right now. So keep drinking. That's a good way to do it.
I'll take the pressure off. Don't worry.
All right. So I guess let's start off like we're going to be talking about Braley Pond, and this is literally a pond. It's a big pond. It's not like like up here in Pennsylvania. When I think of pond, it's like this. It's a decent sized body of water, just not really big. But and we'll get into it a little bit later. But I've seen it firsthand, and it's a little bit bigger than what I would call a pond. I would almost call it a small lake. So how did you get onto this? How did you, I guess, become aware of this little piece of Virginia?
So I used to write for this camping magazine called The Dirt, DUIRT. It's like it's an app where you can kind of it suggests like it's like a camping repository, I guess, like where you can look up like different campsites and it'll give ratings and things like that. But they also have a magazine component. There's a print magazine, which I was unaware of when I wrote the article, but apparently they have a print and an online version that go along with the app. And I was doing, I wrote articles for them, and I pitched an idea because it was getting around Halloween. I was like, man, I really love Halloween, and I want to try to figure out how do I write about camping and, Halloween at the same time. And so I asked a buddy who I used to work with. He's a paranormal investigator on the weekends. And I said, hey, Mark, do you know any haunted campgrounds? And he's like, well, I've never been there, but there's this place called Braley Pond in Virginia. And I've heard crazy things about it. You should look it up. And I said, okay. So I did and found all sorts of off the wall things, conflicting information. The stuff that I read was like spirits hovering over the water, like somebody committed suicide there. Somebody went crazy there because of all the hauntings. But kind of weird things too, that made me think like, well, that's not weird. Like somebody who reported like horses galloping in the middle of the night, and I'm like, well, I think there's horses near there. That's not weird to me at all. That's not creepy. Children laughing, and I was like, well, that children laughing also, like, it's a campsite, so maybe there were children laughing. Like, so but there were conflicting stories about this person that had committed suicide and this other person who went nuts from this experience that they had. And so I started digging in on that because I was like, what? Like, this is conflict, because basically we're talking about the same person, but they didn't name names. And I was like, well, who is this? Is this the same person, or is it two different people? And so there's I found Black Raven Paranormal on online, and they are based out of Stanton, Virginia, and they had gone to Braley Pond. And so that was kind of, I just started tracking down like local paranormal investigators in Virginia and contacting them and asking them. And Black Raven, Marty Siebel, who runs it, was the first to respond. And he told me about his friend Shay Willis, who was the person who went to Braley Pond and investigated and experienced the haunting. She had a really kind of freaky paranormal experience there. And so all these rumors were about her, but all the rumors were wrong. And so when she started telling me her story, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Okay. So I wrote about that for The Dirt and for a further Halloween issue. And that was back in 2018.
Okay. So if anyone's interested, I did put the link to that article in the chat room, so you guys can look that up and read it. So it's interesting. Now, after talking to you, because we talked on the phone for a little bit about this and the experiences of these ghost hunters and stuff that you had. We talked about that. And then last weekend, I think it was, on my way home. Was it last weekend? I forget. Yeah, it was about a week ago. Yeah,
Friday.
last weekend I came home from North Carolina, and I stopped there. I was like, all right, I can add a little bit of time on my travel home, but I'm going to stop there because we've talked about it so much. I've looked into it, and it was an interesting story. So, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but like after talking to you, I started looking into it just to see, because I like that kind of stuff. And when I got there, it was really interesting because it looks like it's a big rectangle, basically. And as I was going up, I crossed the bridge, and you look at these stairs, and these stairs that go up, because the front part of it is like a dam.
Yeah, it's like a levee, I think.
Yeah. So it's this big, long, and I think, I can show you pictures, or at least one picture. And it's actually from your article. That's in your article. So let me share this so people can see kind of what we're talking about here. Oh, wait, there it is. So there you go. So that is basically what you see from where you park. And you'll walk up this flight of stairs here, and then on the other side, there's another set of stairs that go down the same way. Oh, look, I'm cutting him off. There we go. So I'm on the stairs. I'm at the bottom of the main stairs. I haven't gone up the stairs yet. And I'm like, oh, you know what? This will be great. I'm going to do like a TikTok video. I'm going to do a little video or promo. And I start filming, and I start talking, and I'm reading. I have my other phone out, and I'm reading your article. And I get to the point where I'm like, oh, and there's like the sounds of children laughing coming from the woods or something like that. And all I hear is children laughing in the background. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And I actually stopped. And I was like, I gotta go look. I gotta go see. And it was a bunch of kids, but real kids, not ghost kids. So it was an interesting story, and it's just like a good coincidence when I was there. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't look scary. It doesn't give that scary feel.
It's really beautiful there.
Yes, it really is. I mean, it's let me see, because there is another picture here that I'll show everyone, just so they can get an idea of what we're talking about. There you go. That's what it looks like. It's pretty much a rectangle, and that's it. It's a like a fishing hole.
I think it was like handmade, like
it's man-made.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
man-made.
It is a man-made pond, and it's part of the. I think I'm going to get this wrong. I think it's part of the George Washington National Forest.
Okay.
Because it goes out. I mean, like you can get lost in there. But if you stick to around the pond, then you're fine. But if you go past the pond, you could hike for days.
There's a lot of land there, and even getting back to the pond, I mean, it's not too far off the main road, but once you turn off that road, it is literally it's a dirt road. It goes down to where I was like, I don't think this is a 2-lane road anymore, but it is, because that's the only way in and out, and it just goes back to the campground sites. And right there, I believe it's free. You don't have to reserve or anything. You can just show up and camp, which actually opens it up, because I mean, that sounds like an adventure. I think we can do something where we can see if we can get a bunch of people together and just say, hey, we're meeting here, we're gonna camp, we're gonna look for some ghosts. So in my research, and we talked about this a little bit before the show, I found that most of these legends really didn't spring up until around 2003 when a certain event happened. So what can you tell us about that?
So in 2003, I think it was May 22nd, 2003, a guy named Christopher Kennedy was murdered there. He was a gang member. It was a gang-related murder. And there were two guys that he was in a gang with. It was the Gangster Disciples gang. The Stanton newspapers actually got the name of the gang wrong, apparently, from what I've heard.
Okay.
That I think they said it was like the Crips, or
Oh my God.
I can't remember which. There's so many different ones, but they had claimed that it was another gang. But in the podcast, I actually talked to one of the guys who was involved in the murder, and he verified that it was actually the Gangster Disciples.
Okay.
But anyway, so Chris is like a new recruit in the gang. He's only been in the gang for a couple of weeks, and the details are a little sketchy as far as like why he was murdered. But some people say that he was trying to get out of the gang. Some people say that maybe he was having an affair with the gang queen. Her name is Candace Knott, and her husband was in jail, and he was the gang leader. And so there's different stories about what happened,
Right.
and why they kind of put a hit on him. But basically, Candace's husband, and then Candace was she was not in jail at the time, so she was like taking orders from her husband in jail.
Okay.
And basically he was like, you need to get rid of him. And so these two guys lured him to Braley Pond, basically saying, hey, we need to go. I think they were going to go get cash from somebody. I think that was the story.
Okay.
Or no, they told him, hey, your cousin is in the hospital. Let's go. We got to go see him. He's in the hospital. And his cousin, I think his name was Kenny. Yeah.
Not me.
He was in the gang as well. So anyway, so they made up this kind of elaborate plan, like, hey, your cousin's in jail. We got to go see him. But first we have to go to Braley Pond. We have to go see this guy about some money because he owes us money, and we're going to go rough him up. And they take Chris to the pond. And then when they get there, they stab him. They murder him.
Okay. And they stabbed him like 12 or 13 times, depending on the report that I read.
Pretty excessive. Yeah.
Pretty bad. Yeah.
And then they dump his body in the pond. But and then the next morning, a fisherman found him floating in the pond, and so they were arrested. Not terribly. At the most, I think it was like 48 hours later.
Okay.
And it may have been shorter than that.
I want to give everyone context. Like, when we say gang, when he says gang, like, I'm thinking like really hard ass people, like somebody you don't want to mess with. But one of the newspaper articles I found, like these are two of the gang members, and there's your queen right there. And they don't look scary at all. They don't look. There you go. There's some gang members.
Oh my God.
They look like
they look like they're like in their 20s, like robbing this 7-Eleven.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris was 19 at the time when he was murdered. And the rest of them
21 and 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Candace and the rest of them were in their early 20s. Seth, who is the one that I interviewed in the podcast, he was the youngest member, and he was like 17, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
So my idea of gangs before going into this podcast was completely different than what I discovered, because Stanton, I'd never been to Stanton, Virginia before, or that area of Virginia. And so, I mean, Stanton itself is, they've got actually a really cute downtown, and it's a really historic city. I mean, I think they've been around 1700s. And there's a lot of historic buildings there, but around that area, it's really dural. Not a lot to do there. And so there's a lot of drugs. There's a lot, I mean, there's tagging. But during that time, though, the gangs really started to ramp up, and there were a lot of gangs. And so, and they were feeding from major cities. They were from like DC and New York, even Chicago. And so I found, like, and a lot of this is in the podcast too. Like, it's not just when I try to describe to people what this podcast is. It is paranormal, but it's true. It's also true crime, but also like talk about a lot of social issues too, like
Right.
gang problem in Stanton, Virginia, in 2003, because these kids, methamphetamines was like the drug of choice there, and so there was a lot of addiction going on, and that factored heavily into this murder.
Wow.
All right, so here's the true paranormal, like John Kennedy's true paranormal. No, John, it's not true paranormal, because it's not true. Anyway,
Tiffany missed the name of the podcast.
What's the name of the podcast? I missed it.
What happened at Braley Pond?
Okay. Oh, that's pretty simple. Yeah. So after this murder, then, and which definitely tragic, but there's these stories that start popping up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we have some of the legends that you already mentioned about the sounds of children laughing, which again, and now I'm going to go all skeptical on some of these where it's like, okay, yeah, I had that experience, but it was actually kids, which it's a park. And you're right. It's like, what's it called? It's called George Washington and Jefferson National Forest.
Yes, that's it.
So it's huge. It's it's a huge area. So, and there's trails everywhere.
Yep.
So yes, you're going to hear kids. There is that one legend that you mentioned about spirits hovering over
the water. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's funny. I mean, I followed the creek from the pond, and I was like, all right, well, there's not really a big area where a ghost would just be like, hey, I'm hanging out over the creek, because it's small. If you saw like this glowing figure out on the pond, that would be cool. I would be into that. I would totally into that. I know. Like,
hey guys,
that's what I want.
Do something over the pond.
Do something. Don't not the creek. No.
Don't limit yourself to the creek. Go to the pond.
Try to impress us all.
Look at all this real estate. Look at the square footage. You have so much to spread out on. It's a big pond. The camper, and I think you touched on this already, but there was an investigator that camped overnight and went insane, allegedly, but you never found that person, right?
Yeah, no. And there were two, and somebody apparently had another paranormal investigator had committed suicide. That was another story. So one went crazy, and either the same paranormal investigator or another paranormal investigator committed suicide. I mean, that's the thing, is like there were all these conflicted, like, blog posts or whatever, or postings on different paranormal websites about like what exactly happened.
Were they from the same group?
No, different. No. I mean, sometimes it was individuals. Sometimes
like
it was
stories. Okay.
I found the same thing looking into it, because I was like, all right, let me dig and see like where did these legends come from? Is there like, did it come before 2003 or is it mostly after? And everything that I found was after, and it's like that's where the interest was. And those two instances, the one where an investigator goes insane overnight, and then another one where an investigator commits suicide because of all the activity. That's like classic legend tripping. It's definitely legend tripping. And especially, I mean, because if you're going to have someone maybe not go insane, but the suicide one, that would make the papers.
Right.
That would make the news, and you should be able to track that down fairly easy. But I couldn't find anything that related to that.
I couldn't either.
So I'm going to put that in the category of just legend, folklore, and move on. So you did contact a ghost hunter that claimed to have an experience, and when I read the account, I was like, wow, this is out there. Okay, so can you talk about that a little bit?
Can. Yeah. So her name is Shay Willis, and she went out there with a guy named Chris Pugh about 6 months after the murder of Christopher Kennedy, and this is like October 2003. and they go out there twice. So they go out during the day. They're part of they at the time they mentored like kind of this troubled teens group, who it's kind of hard to describe. Who were all interested in like the paranormal and stuff.
Okay.
Right. So they were and mix that in with like medieval like people going to like medieval fairs. Like there was a big like so
Renaissance
they
fair.
were all yes they were so they'd go to like Renaissance fairs. Chris Pugh actually was and I unfortunately didn't get to interview him for my podcast. He was going to interview, and then COVID happened, and then he owns a Renaissance store in Stanton, and they were having a lot of. I mean, he was really worried about his business closing, and so, I was supposed to go out there and visit him. We were supposed to chat. COVID happened. That shut that down. Several months later, I reached out to him again. I was like, "Hey, like, can we just talk on the phone?" But he was like, "Look, I'm about to lose my business. I can't. I don't have time." Nicely, he was like, "I can't."
Right.
So Shay was the person that I talked to, and but Shay went out there with Chris. They went out with a group of, late teens, early 20s kids to investigate Braley Pond. Immediately getting there, Shay reports that a lot of these kids, and in her, she's an empath. She's an energy worker.
All right. We I don't know if I told you last time, but we do have a rule when we use the word energy, especially in that kind of sense, we all have to drink.
Okay. Probably going to be mentioning it a lot then.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
so that means we're going to get
the
lit.
kind of party we like.
So I mean, and I'm going to interrupt it. I'm going to interject every now and then and just talk and be like, all right, well, here's my 2 cents about that. Here we go. Before you go any further, define empath.
Define empath. Empath, from what was described to me, is somebody who is able to read other people's energy. Might as well take a drink now.
Oh my god! How about I give it a shot?
Negative, positive energy, the energy of places. They can. They are very empathetic. They can sense other people's feelings, but on like a really deep level, more than intuition, right? So it's more than just like, I think that person is kind of a creep because he kind of looks like a dick. It's more like, I have a really bad feeling about that person, and I'm not sure where that's coming from, except that they're giving off this negative energy type thing.
God damn, you're killing me, Small. So yeah, my understanding, my interactions with people that claim to be empaths, it's basically like, yeah, they read emotions.
Yep.
And that's the basic description. That's basically it, that they read emotions from other people.
And they can do it with places too.
Yeah, that's what they claim. And I mean, from my perspective, and I'm sure everyone watching already knows what I'm going to say, but we all have that kind of thing. We all experience empathy for other people, and you can pick up on the emotions of others, especially when like they're scared. You see it. When they're happy, you see it. When you talk to them, their tone of voice, you pick it up. Going into a location, yes, you can get influenced by visual cues. Looking at the state of repair or disrepair of a location. The colors, the decor, all this gives you visual cues. So, and I mean, I actually thought about seeing if I could reach out to Shay and have her come on too. But I didn't have time. Unfortunately, I've been busy this week, so I didn't have time to try that. But
you know what? I think if you ever wanted to do it in the future, I'm sure she would.
It would be interesting. We've had a psychic on the show before, and it went well. But it's definitely difficult because this show presents hard questions for people that make certain claims.
And she's used to that. So I think because I gave her some pretty hard questions when I interviewed her multiple times, and I went in there completely like, I think this is a lot of bullshit. But she's mentioned like, you can ask me whatever you want, and I think she'd be up for it.
Well, we'll see how this goes. Maybe after your series comes out, your podcast series, we can have you back on and get her back on, or get her on and do a little like a summary. Or what do we got here? Tiffany says, would you differentiate between an empath and an emotionally intelligent person? Emotionally intelligent person. I don't know what that is.
Well, so I think I know what she means. So like an emotionally intelligent person, like if they're very aware of their own feelings and other people's feelings, are able to kind of read other people's emotions. I think with an empath, there's that added ability to read or sense. It's not just people, it's like places, and it's like like whether it's abandoned buildings or old buildings or new buildings or environments. I think that's the difference.
All right, so I got here, emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationship judiciously and empathetically. So I guess being able to know your own emotions, but then also be sensitive to your whoever you're in a relationship with.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, an empath, and this is just the definition from the almighty Google, is a person highly attuned to the feelings and emotions of those around them. So, oh, hey, Shay's here.
Yeah.
Look at that. Oh, damn. Oh, she's here lurking in the background. We'll be honored to be on the show at some point. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, just to be blunt, I don't put any stock into any kind of psychic abilities. I usually go with the more, I guess, scientific version where we all can read others' feelings. I mean, we have experience in this, so I'm not knocking her. Don't get pissed off, Shay. But I just don't put any stock or belief in someone that claims to be an empath or psychic or a medium. I mean, and that's standard. Everybody that watches this show knows that. But I think you can pick up on people's emotions. I mean, I do it. I consider myself a good listener, and I do like to pick up on the feelings of others. Not that I have a magical power or anything. It's just I look at visual cues, and the tone of voice and their posture and how they're handling themselves, what they're saying, how they're saying it, and all of these cues. So I go off of that. So we're at the point where they're at no pressure now because she's in the chat room watching. So, but what happens? What is this experience? Okay. And if she wants to come on,
correct me on here, but I
go ahead.
So they go, and basically people start getting sick. Like they start feeling nauseated once they're there, and it's not just one or two people; it's like multiple people in the group. And I think it's a group of like 10 or 12 people. And then so they leave, and then Shay and Chris come back that night. And it's kind of the same thing where they get these really like they start feeling these negative vibes there. And there are a couple of different things that happen.
She's laughing because we totally know you avoided that word.
Yeah, I did that on purpose. So a couple of things happen, or several things. So they're going around the pond, and they see an orb, like a bright green orb, up in a tree. That's one thing. They hear what sounds like a full-grown person splashing around in the water below them. And then also, Shay. This is the weirdest part. So then Shay feels this thing on her back that she can't see it, but she feels it, and she said it felt like this big, giant, invisible, like worm-like creature that was like crawling around on her back, and she couldn't see it. She was, and Shay made clear to say that like she's never been scared. Like in her experience as a paranormal investigator, she's never been scared of, like ghosts or anything like that. She's pretty welcoming about that stuff like this. But this was kind of the first time that she had ever really been scared because she didn't know what it was. She just knew something was on her. She couldn't get it off. Chris couldn't see it. They freak out. They start running back to the car, and this thing is on her, and she can't get it off. And even when they get in Chris's truck and they go back to Chris's truck, can't get it off. It's still there. Chris is like, I don't see it. I don't know what you're talking about. And she's freaking out. And finally, when they get back to Chris's house, there's this same, like, not going to get into details about what happens back there at their house, except to say that there was just a lot of negativity, like just a real heavy negative feeling among the group. And so the group of like mentees were there at the house. And people start acting differently and getting aggressive and things like that. Finally, Shay, with the help of somebody else, is able to get the thing off of her. But after like months after her experience at Braley Pond, she's kind of plagued by this thing, this thing. Right. And a lot of that's all of that and more is in the podcast, right. But like, yeah. So it's not just, so Braley Pond's kind of the beginning of that.
Okay. So I'm looking at this. All right. So we have, let's come back and go through some of these one by one. And it's up to you, but if Shay wants to come on, I have no problem with that. If she wants to give more details. So Shay, if you're willing to come on, if you're on Facebook, let me know and I'll send you a link to get on, and you can maybe give us a little bit more. Oh, so what was it that pulled it off her?
That's the mystery.
What was it?
That's part of the mystery. We go into it in the podcast.
Okay.
It's
all right.
But it is, nobody really knows.
Okay.
What exactly it was. Like that. There's no definitive answer. Like, oh, it was a raccoon that was, or it was a ghost. Like nobody knows.
Okay. Was there any biological evidence, I guess, left behind? Example, like slime from a slug. That's the first thing I thought of too. Like, was there any evidence left behind?
That's a good question. Would be a question for Shay.
Okay.
Actually.
So, I guess the first thing, and so let me explain to everyone that when I look through articles like this, and there are pictures involved, because there are some pictures included here, and I do. That's my specialty, going through pictures and looking at them and seeing if they're valid or useful or not useful. So there's a picture of the alleged green orb in here, and unfortunately that's not. Shay is following the rule of drink every time, and therefore okay, all right. That's a fair answer.
We didn't give her fair warning.
So the picture that's included in the article about with the green orb. So unfortunately, that is it's a, and it's going to sound harsh, but it's a useless photo. There's nothing there except a green dot, And I mean, I let me show you guys just so you understand what I'm looking at here. Let me make sure this is full screen. So that's all we're looking at. And even when I tried to highlight this or enhance it through the software that I use, there's nothing here but noise. So you really can't tell if this is in the trees. You can't tell if it's
a light.
As far as the description, let's see. It says the green orb just before it blinks out. So let's say roughly 30 or 40 feet in the air, looking as though it were nestled in the branches of one of the big pines that flanked the opening to the path, was a brightly glowing fluorescent green light. So this really, I mean, I understand in the darkness that's there, because I'm being there, I can understand that it's going to be really, really dark. Let me get that frame out of your way. There you go. So we can actually see you. The problem I have here is that this picture doesn't show a bright light. It shows a very dim light. And even if the flash went off, if this was a bright light, say if it was glowing bright like the moon, you would see a little bit more. But unfortunately, we can't tell if this is a shot in the pond or a shot in the trees. It's not very bright at all. I can't even tell if it's green. And I'm not kind of trying. Wow, the alcohol is really starting to take effect. I'm not trying to knock you, Shay. I'm just saying I'm giving you an opinion of what I see here. And there's a description here that says roughly 30 or 40 feet in the air. Unfortunately, that is a broad estimation at best, because if you don't know what you're looking at, then it's very difficult and near impossible to determine a size or distance of something, because this could actually be a plane that's many hundreds of feet away, that's up in the sky, but it's just behind trees. So it's very difficult to determine the distance of a light, especially in the dark, if it's behind trees. So unfortunately, this description, it doesn't hold water, and it's not very useful with this. And again, I know that sounds mean, but unfortunately, that's how I see it. The splashing in the water. Let me get this out of here and put my awesome frame back up there. There you go. So the splashing in the water was interesting, because again, like I read this article before I went there, and I was reading it actually when I was walking around the pond. And as I got to the other side, because you walk up the stairs and it's that levee, you walk down the other flight of stairs and you can go around. There's a path that goes around the whole thing. And when you get to the other side, there's a little bit of landmass that comes out in the middle. And it's almost like a dirt dock. It's a little, just a strip of land that comes out in the middle. And I walked out and I was watching a guy, he was fishing, and I heard that splashing, like a loud flopping splashing, but it was a trout. And I know they stock that pond with trout for fishing. So I'm wondering, and this is just a guess, an assumption on my part, is that because they're back there at night, because I think it says in this article that they went back around 11:30 at night. So I'm wondering if they heard some fish moving around and not actually a person.
What time of year was it?
I have no idea.
It was October.
Okay.
It was October.
So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get through those couple things, because those stuck out to me the most, because it's like, all right, especially after visiting the pond, I'm like, all right, now I got a better sense of what's going on here. What could possibly be an explanation for this. So I wanted to apply that to at least on here. This creature thing, this is actually fascinating to me, because it's a unique experience. I've never heard such an experience detailed like this before.
That's what drew me to the story. Yeah,
I'm sure, because when I started reading it, I stopped. I'm like, wait a minute. Let me go back. Am I reading this right? Like a worm-like creature. Okay.
Are you gonna read it?
Let me see. There's as she ran to the truck. Let me see. Make sure I don't skip anything. Witnesses, but there are witnesses. Oh, let's see. In the interview, she detailed the way it moved. Oh, all right. Getting ahead of myself. I don't know how to explain it except for he literally flew upwards and to my left. If something caught in the middle of my back, like using forward momentum. Willis stopped at the water's edge, knelt down, and began screaming for Arnold, who assured her he was okay. He begged her to stop running, to keep running. As she stood up, she felt something land on her back. In the interview, she detailed the way it moved along her back, like a 2-foot-long inchworm. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I like your choice of description here. Humping its way from arm to arm and across the back of her head. So, an inchworm, in her journal, she describes it as a psychic jelly. It felt as though it had some sort of tentacles.
Like a slug?
I don't know how big this is supposed to be. Understand? I've got big shoulder. Oh, she actually commented here.
No, that was from before.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is, I don't know what to make of this. I really don't, because it sounds like, I mean, the first description says it's like a 2-foot-long inchworm.
2 foot's pretty long.
That's pretty big. I mean, we're talking like that's yeah, that's almost the size of your shoulders, or at least the size of my shoulders. But it's but the description goes on to say that it was, I'm not going to say humping again. It made its way
like inching, like an
arm
inchworm,
to arm,
inching maybe instead of humping
across the back of her head. So it was going across the back of her head. So it had to be small. It had to be actually smaller. So I don't know if it was supposed to be 2 feet or like a 2-inch long.
2 foot could have been like going up and like wrapping around her hair and shit.
The impression I got was that it kind of took up most of her back, shoulders, and that,
okay,
like if it's 2 feet, that's
a lot.
Yeah, I mean that
pretty
could
big,
take up a lot of your body, and that's so yeah.
It's just to me, my impression is that this description kind of contradicts itself, because if you have a 2-foot-long thing on you, that's going to take up the most of your real estate on your back. But she's describing that it goes across the back of her head. Humping its way from arm to arm. Oh, so maybe it's like not like I'm taking like it more as like crawling, going across. But maybe from what this description, now that I read it again and again, it sounds like maybe it's just going from one shoulder to the other.
Caterpillars move like humping, like,
and it's just humping
along instead of humping.
It's just humping.
What it's doing.
The size of a pizza pan, undulating
humping. Wow. Okay. Don't bring Shay on tonight.
Undulating. Oh, that's the word of the night. It was undulating. I'm going to use that all day tomorrow.
Oh, great.
At the paranormal conference. All day. All right. So we have this worm thing. Oh, man. I wish you could come on, Shay, because I'm really curious about this thing. So they finally get it off, but they don't have any like evidence or no sign that it was actually there. I guess I don't understand how they got something off if they couldn't see it.
Yeah, that's more of a question for Shay.
Okay.
She explained it. Honestly, I can't remember.
Okay.
How, like, what the process was. I feel like there was some sort of ritual done outside.
Okay.
But Shay can correct me if I'm wrong on if she chooses.
I'm looking here. It's crawling over me. Oh, okay. Bob's got a question. Was there any video of this? Oh, this is probably for Shays too. Meaning pre, during, or post worm humping. I am thinking I would want to see Shay's reaction throughout. So there is a keep in mind that we can sometimes feel something on us for a while after something brushes against us. It's psychological, like a phantom humping earthworm. I get that. Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, you can feel it. It's kind of like when you it's almost like that feeling when you see a bug. When you're in a place like a hotel room or something and you see a bug, and then you just get the creepy crawlies where you're constantly feeling it.
Here's my argument against that, though, because I've done that before, where I've like, if I feel like I've got a bug on me or something, and I'm like, oh, and it's not really on me, but I feel like it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
But this sounds like it's considerably heavier and more, like there's more girth to it. Like the impression I got when she told me was that it was this. It was, to me, I imagine some sort of like massive backpack on her, like the weight of some, you know what I mean? Like it again, Shay, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the impression I got. It was this considerate, like, and to me, that's more than just like, oh, I feel like I think there's a bug on me, or a branch, I felt a branch brush against me, and I still think it's like, this is something completely different than that, is the impression I got when she told me the story.
Okay.
A couple times.
So it goes on to say that, let's see, Willis insisted it's crawling all over me. And then there's an audio clip here. I don't know how long is this audio clip? Do you know?
Like 30 seconds, maybe, I think.
30 seconds?
Yeah.
Is this something we can play?
Can we get in trouble?
That's up to you. I mean,
Shay's the one who, it's Shay's audio. So,
okay.
She sent it to me for the article. So,
well, Shay, I'm going to wait till you say if it's okay.
Oh, there you go.
It's okay that I play the article. It had mass.
Animated fruit roll up.
Oh, well, that's a visual. That's animated fruit roll up. So you could actually touch this, because I mean, are you wearing? Wow, I'm directing questions at Shay now. But I'm wondering, like, if she's wearing clothes and stuff, like, how do you? I guess if it's crawling on your head, you can feel it a little bit. Go for it. Okay, so I'm going to play this clip. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to play this for everyone. Because I think I think this is like what was going on, right?
It's when they're running. It's when they're running back.
Okay.
To the stairs, to go up the stairs, I believe.
All right, so I'm going to share it. I'm going to take this thing off of us so we can see it. But here we go. Hopefully, you guys will hear this.
23. 2. Hi. Down to the side of the water. You know what they say about moving water. 3. And just drop that down there. We can call.
All right. Wasn't much there.
It's the very end. There's some sort of like, so when you listen to the very end.
Okay.
The splash? Is that what we're waiting for?
It's like a screech.
23. 2. Hi. Down to the side of the water. You know what they say about moving water. 3. And just drop that down there. We can call.
I hear what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that sounds almost like someone like laughing, like when they're or they're a little bit out of breath. Could be a lot, especially because you're out there. And when I say you're out in the woods, there's nothing. There's nothing out there. And yeah, I can imagine being out there at night. I'd like to hear the rest of the recording, and that's something. Like, not only I do, but I know a lot of other investigators do. Like, when you get a clip like that and you have I guess the event, you want like a good 30 seconds before and after of that. Yes, I was wearing clothes. It was not a night for nakedness. I had on a long sleeve shirt and heavy polar fleece cloak. It was under both on my skin. So that's a lot. That's a lot. That's unfortunately it's I think it falls into one of these personal experiences that there is no hard evidence for. And this doesn't say that you're making it up or you're lying or anything like that. So I want to make that clear, but there is just no physical evidence of it. This recording it's right at the end. It's literally the last second of the recording. So it really doesn't help us understand it unless we had like the 30 seconds afterwards where we could hear the conversation continue and see if there's a reaction to that sound or if there's more of that sound or if we can figure it out, what it actually is. So the paranormal evidence so far, like it's interesting. Like this jelly thing is this fruit roll up is really interesting. I mean, I would love to discuss this.
An eel. Eels are like that. Slimy, long. Oh, they're just gross.
Yeah, but that's something you would see.
You
would see it with. I mean, if you had, first of all, it would have to get under her clothes, and it would still be a physical thing. Like the guy that's there with her, he would be able to feel it or see it, and they would be able to get it off. But I mean, if they're talking, they got home and she was still feeling it. It was still in her clothes.
Fuck that shit, man. I wouldn't have gotten a car with anything fucking on me. No way. That shit's on me. I ain't going anywhere until you guys get it off.
All right. And like her comment here, the screech was when it landed, which I'm taking as when it landed on her. That's even more reason that we need the rest of the recording. We need to hear the rest of it. We can't just, when you stop the recording right there, that's cutting off the majority of the evidence that we would have to look at. There are lots of possible explanations, including a long wet leaf. Why did Shay automatically think paranormal? I don't know. I mean, I can. The clip was saved in my Braley file, but the original recording was on an old computer that no longer exists. Convenient. Well, I'll give you points for acknowledging the bad convenience there. But yeah, that does suck because, I mean, that clip doesn't do much for us. Interesting. All right. So what else we got?
So I can tell you about another experience.
But you know what? Hold on. Why don't we save that experience? We're going to do our commercial break.
Sure.
And then when we come back, we will get into that. And I also want to touch on the negativity and the possible reasons behind the negativity when they got back, like when they were all mad at each other, because I have some ideas for that. So, all right. So we have 2 minutes and 22 seconds break. So if anyone has to pee or refill your cup, like me, this is the time to do it. And enjoy the commercial now. Hey everyone, this is my store based on the theme of science and skepticism. It's here that you can find all kinds of shirts and hoodies, yoga pants, tote bags, the fanny packs I know you guys love, masks and pillows, all with science and skepticism as the theme. I even have hoodies for your pets. That's right, your dog or cat can wear one of these things. I also have a general store that sells more inspirational quotes or, drinking stuff because I like that kind of thing. I also have a store set up for our Three Tortured Souls podcast, which we do Saturday nights. You can find shirts and Tim Vicker's favorite drinking vessel, the mug. I also have a store tailored a little bit more towards my ghost hunting friends, Paranormal by I Am Kenny Biddle. These are shirts and quotes that are a little bit more on the ghost hunting side, especially this one, Translucent Perished Beings. Ghosts. That's my favorite. So if you're interested, head on over to teespring.com/stores/scientific skepticism by IAKB and check it out. Thanks.
Are you tortured by what you see and hear about the paranormal field? Join us as we critically examine and question paranormal claims, science, ghosts, demons, cryptids, UFOs, ghost hunting technology, and much more are all on the table for discussion. 3 Tortured Souls is a video podcast that streams live on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 Pacific.
3 Tortured Souls.
I love that break, but I got to make it a little bit longer because I hear the music starting to wind down. I'm like, oh shit, I got to get back. I usually jump in my seat, and most of the time I make it. Once I fell, which was funny to see, but I recovered before the camera came back on. So anyway, all right, Kenny, don't wait. What is that? Don't say I want to touch on, and then point towards your crotch. I will do what I want, John. This is my show.
You don't want to get like kicked
okay.
off, dude.
So
took a while to get you back on.
Yeah, John Kennedy. Don't make Donna ban you again.
Yeah, Donna's feeling pretty good. It might be an easy click.
All right, Charlie, we got
Yep.
to touch on the negativity before we move on to the next experience that you have. I would think that might not be like something you can blame on like supernatural or anything. I would think that if it was a highly emotionally charged event, as in like people were like freaked out about something, I've seen that where people get pissed off. They get mad and angry and they're high stress situations. So I can understand that if someone freaked out about something, if Shay like felt something on her and was freaking out, the other guy couldn't figure out what it is, I could see them starting to fight or get angry at each other. Just like high tension, and that little, back and forth kind of thing. So I can understand that, but I mean, without actually being there and observing how negative the negativity was, like that's just an assumption on my part.
Well, it was actually everybody else in the house. I mean, there were, I can't remember the number, but it was like 10 to 12 people, like people who weren't there the second time that didn't go back to Braley Pond, who were there.
Oh,
they were the ones.
These are all people that were still like there the first time, but came back and waited at the house.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they were.
There were some physical altercations that happened.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I remember.
Okay.
Again, Shay, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. So, all right. You said you had to. There was something else that you wanted.
So there's another part to this also. I mean, there's several parts, but the most immediate afterward was I think it was a few weeks later. Shay's son, he was younger at the time. I think he was like 8 or 10 or something like that. He came downstairs in the middle of the night and saw a man standing, I think, in a corner in I think it was the living room or it was by the stairs or something. Saw a man, and he was wet and had holes in his chest, like in his body. And at first he thought they were gunshots, but then the more he thought about as years went on, he realized they were knife wounds. and he was wet, and he tried to talk to the guy and asked him what his name was, and his name was Scott. And then he vanished. Christopher Kennedy went by Scott. His friends and family called him Scott or Scotty.
Okay.
And so that was another piece of it too. And I talked to, in the podcast, I talked to Shay's son about this, and he recounts. Shay told it to me first. I went and I talked to her son, and he tells me all about it. And he went into detail about what he looked like, what he was wearing. When I, in the podcast, I talked to, a lot of the podcast deals with Christopher's best friend, Kevin. They were childhood friends. Kevin actually is the one who kind of inspired me to do this podcast. I mean, I knew Shay's story. Shay's story is a lot larger, a lot bigger than just that article. There's a lot more to it, a lot more background stuff. But Kevin, he emailed the Dirt, and then they forwarded me the email, and he was talking about, the article, and that they were best friends, that he wanted to go to Braley Pond and figure out if what happened with Shay was related to Chris. But I Kevin's featured in the podcast quite a bit as well, because I could tell that he was still really hurting, because it was his best friend. They grew up, they kind of grew apart before Chris died, because Chris joined this gang,
right,
and became kind of a different person. And so, so Kevin, emailed me, and in his email just expressed how much he missed his friend, and was glad that somebody was writing something about it, and wanted to take a trip to Braley Pond.
Okay.
Wow.
I mean, it certainly it made me aware of it, and I got to visit it. So
yeah,
I mean, it's pretty cool. So this story, this idea of, I'm going to read off the paragraph here. It says a few weeks later, after this, Willis and her husband were in bed watching television one night when they heard their 8-year-old son screaming wildly from the living room. When they reached him, he was pointing into a corner of the living room. Willis and her husband asked him what was going on. Their son said he saw a guy standing there with multiple holes in his chest, wet and covered in blood. To comfort him, she just suggested it might have been a shadow. Eventually, Willis began to feel like herself again. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That mentions it in the article about the son. And it's interesting. You talk about the more information about this. The thing that pops up immediately in my head is that, one, it's an 8-year-old kid. So, and again, I'm not picking on a kid, so I don't want anyone getting, oh, look, he's picking on a child. No, shut the fuck up. I'm just pointing out the obvious. It's an 8-year-old child that may or may not have a nightmare, may or may not have watched a scary movie or something like that beforehand. I don't know. But we're going off the testimony of an 8-year-old child. And then when you talk to him, I'm guessing you talked to him not long before the article came out.
No, I talked to him after.
So
okay. I talked to him for the podcast. So what I included in the article is what Shay told me. So for the podcast, because I hadn't even thought about the podcast before writing the article. I was, the podcast was kind of born after the article.
Okay.
So we have a conversation about it, and he goes into a lot more detail about it.
So we're talking at least 15 years after the experience that you're getting. Well, it's 15 years after the experience that you're getting it from secondhand from the mother. And then probably we're talking 17 years maybe So like an additional 2 years or 3 years afterwards, we're getting it from the son directly. And I guess the only issues that I have with that would be that memory sucks. Memory absolutely sucks. Eyewitness testimony is horrible, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that sucks, but when you have a friggin' nightmare, I think I would remember it.
Well, again, it falls under memory. So when you're trying to remember a dream or a nightmare from 15 years ago at minimum, it's not all that reliable. And that causes problems. And it also, because we're talking about something that came up, it likely came up in conversation because they investigated the pond. The gentleman who I think, what's his name?
They went with Shay.
Yeah.
Chris Pugh. I changed his name for the article because
Okay.
at that point I didn't have permission to use his name. But
Okay.
his name's Chris Pugh.
Okay. So he goes out there. He asked Shay about if she had ever heard of this, because it's only like 6 months later, I think, that they went out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard. Like, I don't really follow the news, but if something happens in the local area, you hear about it. So whether directly or indirectly, they likely heard about it. And then after visiting the pond, I'm sure it was talked about. And even if you're not aware of who's listening, sometimes kids listen. So if there were details or something like spoken on the phone or in person that the kid might have picked up, and maybe that caused the nightmare, I don't know. I'm speculating here because I can only go off the information from the article and from our conversation here. But I'm just trying to throw out ideas here of what might cause this.
Right.
Do I think it's a supernatural event? I don't see anything that points to it. I see other reasons that could bring this kind of nightmare up. So there's issues there. And again, memory just, it sucks. I mean, you try to think about things happened 15 years ago. When you're an adult, it's difficult.
Did they know the story about the man that was killed in the pond before he had the nightmare? Or before he saw this?
So I can't.
Like, did the kid know about this story?
Well, that's what I was touching on. Like, if it's spoken about by the adults, mom, dad, the other gentleman that came out with her, if it's spoken about or discussed, you're not
Like
sure
how
if
he
the
was
kid
killed or
might have
whatever.
listened to it. Yeah, and I mean, it was in the news. I mean, I found newspaper articles throughout that time frame where it's mentioned. So not only the people involved, but the actual event, how it happened, how his body was found, it's all there. So if it was on the news or read in the newspaper, if it was on the local TV news, you could have heard it. So I'm just speculating because that's the first things that come to mind when I hear about this kind of stuff.
So and just to give some context too with the podcast, that's a lot of what I do too.
Okay.
Is I question a lot of things. So this isn't like a I'm just telling like a ghost story or whatever. Like there's a lot of moving parts because it's the same thing. And I mean, and Kitty, you're on the podcast. I mean, there's a well, it was our first conversation. Remember?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, because we talked about this. This was probably, gosh, last year.
This one we talked about like ley lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's been a while because I mean, I've been doing this for like 3 years now.
Right.
And so, but yeah, I mean, you're in an episode talking about. There's an episode that I devote to the paranormal community in Stanton, and so like Marty Siebel is one of those guys. Shay, there's other people too, and then I bring you in. I bring in Brandon Masulo, who's the author of the Ghost Studies, and we talk about like different scenarios, different theories. You give your opinion on what you think is true and not true. Brandon does that as well. But the whole thing is there's a lot of questioning going on my part.
Good.
Because again, like, and I'll give Shay credit because she invited me, to do that.
Mhm.
And I was already doing it, but I mean, she was very open to, she gets it a lot. And so she was used to it. And and there's a lot of times where she say, I know you think I sound crazy. I think I sound crazy, but this is what happened to me.
Mhm.
Which makes me want to believe her because,
Right.
I mean, she, there were people that I talked to. There's a guy, Shay knows who I'm talking about. There's a gentleman that I interview, and he is no longer in Stanton, but he was, and he's really dramatic. He's funny. But he has a lot of stories, a lot of like more out there than what Shay is talking about. And he's really dramatic. He's got a flair to him, and he was a really fun interview, but he's really controversial in that community. But there were a lot of things that I'm like, come on, man, that's not. I mean, I don't necessarily say it to him, but like, and because it's a narrative podcast, so like I do interview clips and then I comment on kind of like what people have talked about, and there are things that I'm like, that's just absolutely not true. Like it's because I know, like there was he got some facts wrong, but there were also some things that he said that were really compelling that drove me to dig deeper. And we go way beyond ghosts in this podcast. It's not even, it's otherworldly. There are things. So I mean, it's you've got 9 episodes of like starting from like a haunting at Braley Pond and a murder to we cover. I mean, I talked to a physicist at Oak Ridge, and I went and toured the Oak Ridge National Laboratory there and interviewed a physicist. I interviewed a what is his title? A parapsychologist, I think.
Parapsychologist? Yeah.
I think that's the correct phrase. Dr. Edward Kelly at the University of Virginia in the Perceptual Studies Division, where they study from a very scientific point of view. They study like the afterlife. They study, dreams. They study, they won't go so far as to say ghosts, right? Because that's not scientific. But they talk about, anything having to do with the mind or out of body experiences, communicating with other beings. They cover the gamut.
Psychokinesis and all this. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. John Kennedy wants to know, what physicist did you talk to?
Leah Broussard. Dr. Leah Broussard.
Okay. What can you give us like an idea what you talked to him about?
Portals.
Oh my god. Portals, like paranormal portals.
Interdimensional portals.
Oh my goodness.
So I didn't go to Oak Ridge to say, hey, Dr. Broussard, do interdimensional portals exist? She's actually working on a project right now. She doesn't have the results yet, but she's in the middle of this massive project about dark matter and possible, for lack of a better term, mirror universe, which people think, Stranger Things. I mean, I even talk about that in the podcast, but it's not like that when you think of, there's no upside down, but it is a potential, mirror universe when we talk about neutrons and things that completely go over my head that I need a translator to translate for me. But it's really interesting, the things that she had to say, and I'd never been to Oak Ridge before, and I only live like 2 hours from there, and it was fascinating.
So this
she when she was, sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No,
I was
it's
just
good.
addressing John's comment. She, I found her because I think it was last summer or maybe the summer before, when she started this experiment. She kind of blew up a little bit because it was right around Stranger Things, like I think it was the third season
Okay.
or something. And she was doing all of this research, and she got a lot of media attention about it. So you can just Google her and you can find her. And then I also, you can also subscribe to her Google Scholars. Like you just,
yeah.
and I've tried to read that stuff. I can't make heads or tails of it, but it is, But
it's hit or miss with papers because sometimes I can read them and all right, you know what? As long as I have like Google in the other window here and I can start looking up some terminology, I can get through it. Other times I read the abstract and I'm like, wow, I'm lost.
I mean, you're talking to somebody who took chemistry 3 times and failed 3 times. I got a C in physics. Like science is not my thing.
Okay. Oh, all right. So, I mean, this podcast sounds because when I think when I first talked to you, I think it's supposed to be like a 3 or 4 part.
It was
series.
So originally it was going to be at the most 6 episodes, but I just kept going down wormholes. I kept going down rabbit holes, or wormholes, or interdimensional portals. Whatever. I just kept getting I mean, even like Kevin Manis is in it because I talk about Dibbuk boxes.
What?
Like, I go all over the place because it all connects. It just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Wow.
And, again, like so part of it is like I'm not trying to solve any crime. The crime was solved. Like, within months. These people are in jail. So it's not me trying to like solve any kind of crime. It's not necessarily me trying to disprove anything that anybody tells me. It's more, I call it exploratory, where it's, I'm curious. Like why, when you say that this giant, like slimy worm thing got on your back, what does that mean? And so, I talk to, other people about it. And not just paranormal investigators, but I talk like I think the guy from UVA, I think I mentioned that to him, I believe. And so anyway, I mean, I talk to a lot of different people. We go to, I even talk to like, there's also like an element of spirituality in there, like religion and stuff.
Okay.
And I talk a lot about my personal experience with like death and ghosts and, questions I have from my own personal experiences.
So that sounds, I mean, I get it because sometimes when I go into a story, like I get onto I'm on the chase and it takes you in directions where you never thought you would go. And that's what I can totally relate to this because I can see like, oh, well, I went this direction, but there's a branch here that goes off and like I can go in this direction too. And eventually they kind of come together and I can connect the dots here. So it's actually fascinating because when you mentioned it became 9 parts, I was like, wait a minute. He said it was like a smaller number, but this must have grown big. He must have hit something that just exploded and he just went crazy with it. So it sounds like, I mean, I'm interested. I'm the same way. Like when you told me about this pond and the I think the initial thing was that you brought it up about like ley lines and what I thought about those, and because I think Shay was bringing up stuff about it and you were asking my opinion on it, and that got me interested and looked into the pond, looked into the murder. And again, it's like the mystery was solved with the murder part, but I was still interested, and I printed out a bunch of newspaper articles about it and went through it, and the court documents that I could find printed out. Like it's an interesting story, a tragic one, for Chris, but an interesting one nonetheless. So I think this podcast that you have going, it's going to be interesting, and I think everyone that's watching would be interested in this. I mean, they're hanging around this long, so they got to be interested. And I think you're going to, when you get it from the actual people involved, you're going to be entertained and educated, I think.
Well, and another interesting aspect is I talked to one of the guys that was involved in the murder, Seth Tinsley. He was the 17-year-old, and I wrote him a letter to his jail, and he, after some writing back and forth, he agreed, and we chatted a few times. We actually still email back and forth, but he was very open, surprisingly, to talk about exactly what happened. And so I get his perspective on what happened and why he did it. And,
wow.
So he's another very interesting character.
Yeah.
And then, and I talked to, Kenny, when we talked the first time, there was something that you said, listen, be careful, because you're talking about a person who died, like an actual person. And so you got to think about, their family and like people his loved ones who are still kind of dealing with that. And that's always been in the back of my mind. And so a lot of this podcast is about, I mean, honestly, one of the biggest themes is like, how do we deal with the loved ones who died? Like, how do we, so my guiding light, I think, through this was like, we all kind of wonder what happens to us after we die, and we all deal with death in different ways. And sometimes maybe that's, delving into the paranormal because we want answers that we don't have. And so that's a lot of, I deal with that a lot too in the podcast. So,
and yeah, I mean,
in a respectful way.
Yes, you have to be respectful because we see, well, at least I do, ghost hunting teams go in and they tend to forget. And I don't think they do it purposely. I think they do so because they're excited about what they're doing and they're caught up in the thrill, but they forget that the ghosts that they're hunting, for lack of a better word, still have living relatives. And when you start saying, oh, well, this activity was caused by this ghost and this activity, and I got scratched, and, especially if it comes up with like really scary, freaky shit, there's going to be some relative, a brother, sister, father, mother, son, daughter, whatever, that's going to stumble upon that eventually. And they're going to read it, and they're going to read what you wrote or see your video. And you really have to think about how would you feel if that was your relative they were talking about? Like if it was your son that you thought was like beautiful person, awesome, nice to everyone, and I'm just using this as an example, so don't get pissed off, Shay. But if somebody went to that pond afterwards and said, "Oh, well, I had this experience where there's this animated fruit roll up jumped on me and attacked me," and it kind of connects it to, because I mean, all the story, the reason they went there because this murder happened at this pond, so you get that idea that it's connected, and now like this parent or best friend or something reads the story and says, well, this kind of makes it sound like my best friend or my son that died is now this fruit roll up that's attacking people. The fuck is that? So I guess the point of what I'm trying to say is be respectful, understand what you're doing in the moment. Don't just think, oh, this is somebody from like 1700s. Nobody's alive that's related to them or cares anymore. A lot of these things, and we've dealt with it. I mean, there's a certain person, Steve Huff, that loves to capitalize off of people dying in the present, and I think he's total scum, and so I'm not saying that about Shay or anybody like that, but just be respectful, understand what you're doing, be mindful of why you're investigating, who you're investigating, and what consequences might come about if you post something online. So, but I mean, in talking to you, in our conversations over the phone and stuff, like I get the sense that you're very respectful. You understand that, and that's why I kept agreeing to talk to you, because I think you have a handle on it, and you're not exploiting this. You're exploring.
Try not to. Yeah.
And that's the big difference. You can explore something, and talk about it and bring it up and tell the story. You're telling someone's story. And looking at all different angles. Other people like to exploit it, Steve Huff. They like to exploit it and, get clicks and money and all kinds of stuff from it. And that's disgusting. The fruit roll up was not Scott Criskin. Okay. I'm not. Unfortunately, that's just the example that I was going with. So yeah, I don't.
we get into that in the podcast.
Okay.
Like that. Yeah. About what that could possibly be. And it is a lot bigger than that one incident.
And I was trying, like, personal experience, I really tried. When I went to the pond, I went down those stairs, I was on the water, I had my feet on where the water was coming up. I was touching the water and going, "Where are you, jelly thing? Come on, worm. Where are you? Come get me. Here I am." And that's, I think, not long after, that's when I sent you the picture. I was like, "Hey, I'm here." No ghosts. I'm very upset. I'm very disappointed because I didn't find anything. But now that I know that it's open and it's free to camp there, I definitely see a camping adventure in the future of the Skeptical Help Bar and maybe some of our audience members.
Wow.
Maybe we can all get together, including you. And
man, I would love to do that.
Just, hang out there for the night and just see what happens.
I bet Shay would love to do that too.
We'll get Shay to come out.
This is perfect camping weather.
Yeah, it's coming up. All right. So we're at an hour and a half mark. You got anything else to add that you want to add?
What else?
Because I don't want to push you too far, because I know a lot of the stuff you want to keep for your podcast comes, and I don't want to do spoilers. But
let me look at my notes real quick.
If anyone has any questions, this is the time to pop them up. Last minute questions for Charlie here.
They want to do a camping trip.
You want to do a camping trip? All right, I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna see when we can get.
Shay says she'll go.
I don't know if it's so smart to do it this year still, because we're still we still have tough times right now. So I don't want to push anyone. I don't want to force anyone to come out. I don't want to have anyone uncomfortable. So maybe
we should wait till after the podcast, because the podcast will run for 9 weeks.
Okay.
So it's going to run through December.
Okay.
Like
so
spring.
we'll go for spring. We're going to shoot for spring. Because that way the podcast will be out. Everyone can listen to all 9 episodes, or 12 when it eventually comes out. Because if you keep increasing it, we'll get through all that. We'll have as much information as possible. Then we will plan a get together, and we will all meet for we'll meet on a Saturday. We'll stay overnight. We'll do a one night ghost hunt kind of thing. I'll bring some rum, so that we can at least say that we had spirits. And we will go from there. All right. That sounds good. I like that. I really like that idea. Okay.
Yeah.
You got anything else? We do have a question. What we got? John's got a question. I'll put it up.
Oh. He wants to know about the podcast, where he can find the
There you go.
podcast.
Just for those who where can we find your podcast again? Okay.
You can find it on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Acast. So it hasn't. There's the only thing that's out right now is a trailer, but you can subscribe to it. The trailer is pretty cool. You want to play it? You can. It's on Braley. It's on YouTube. There's like a little. It's on YouTube, but then it's on any of those like Apple or Spotify or whatever, there's an audio version as
So,
well.
All right, wait a minute. Where you said it's on YouTube? Where?
If you go to BraleyPondPodcast.com, I have a website.
Oh, okay. Wait.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get that out. Let's see.
Uh-oh.
Braley Pond. What? Braley
Podcast.com.
Pond Podcast. Podcom. All right. Oh, there it is. What happened at
and
Braley Pond?
Just scroll down.
Okay.
Yeah. It's right there.
So let me get this up. Hold on. Let me be full screen. All right, everyone. Here we go. I'm gonna take this comment off. I'm gonna take our banner off. We're gonna play this trailer so everyone can see it. Let me see. Get that off. Okay, and we're gonna share and make sure that I have audio. Yes, and there. All right, here we go.
Nobody wants to go out to Braley Pond. They're afraid that there's some demons out there.
Braley Pond is a 4.5-acre recreational area located in the George Washington and Jefferson National Forest, just 30 minutes west of Stanton, Virginia. Despite its popularity during the day, Braley Pond has become infamous for what happens there at night.
He spins him around and he slits his throat, throws him in the lake.
On May 22, 2003, 19-year-old Christopher S. Kennedy, or Scott as he was called, was murdered by local gang members at Braley Pond. He was lured there under false pretenses, stabbed 13 times in the chest and back, his body dumped into the water. 6 months later, Shay Willis and her friend Chris Pugh, 2 local paranormal investigators, visited Braley Pond after hearing rumors of strange, unexplainable events happening there. What they found was unlike anything they had ever experienced before.
And before I could get up and move, whatever it was that was behind me landed on my back. I could feel what felt like a physical presence, which is unlike anything I have ever experienced before or since. Whatever was in that water, whatever came up over the dam, whatever it was that was following us across the bridge, I had stopped and it caught me.
So this thing is more of it feeds on soul energy. That's what it's after. It needs soul energy.
What happened at Braley Pond? Available this October, wherever you get your podcasts.
Wow.
Sweet.
That was pretty cool.
That was nice.
Thanks.
That was nice. I'm interested. I'm going to listen.
Thanks.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. I like that. All right.
Yeah, and I'm not with any company or anything. It's just me who did.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got people who help me, but like my neighbor helped me do the website for free, and I had another buddy who's like, "I'll do your logo," and then I had another buddy who's like, "I'll do some graphic design," and then the guy who did the music, Mike Troublecock. He is a Canadian composer and was a member of this alt band called the Killjoys, which I vaguely remember from the 90s.
Yeah.
But he did all the music and he did the sound design and stuff. And now we have to drink like 3 times. He did the music and he did an amazing job and helped me put it together. So it's just us.
Okay. Very cool. I'm excited about this. And so is there a reason why you're waiting to release it, or?
Man, just trying to promote it right now.
Okay.
Just
All
trying to get. We're still. I mean, most of the episodes are done. Mike is actually finishing up with. He should be done this weekend with the final edits, and then just trying to promote it before it comes out. Trying to build up some word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I'll release in October because it's Halloween.
Right.
Perfect.
Damn right. I am posting the link to that in the chat room. So
and you
if
can
anyone...
subscribe directly from the website. You just click on the podcast host of your choice, and
Oh yeah, yeah. Subscribe to What Happened to Braley Pond, and then Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, and RSS feed. Yeah, so it's all here.
Yep,
that's cool. That's very cool. All right, where can people find you otherwise, other than this? Do you have any other websites?
I'm on Facebook and Twitter. I've got an Authory page, which is like all my
Authory.
It's Authory. It's just a portfolio. It's all my writing clips and stuff.
Okay.
So and it's a newer. I just subscribed to it, so I don't remember the address, but I think I sent it to you, so it should be.
Yes, I did see it because when I looked up, I think I don't know how I found it. How did I don't know. I forget. I mean, I'm so used to researching stuff that I do stuff so blindly that I don't realize, like, oh, how did I get here? Shit, I don't know.
It's but it's in my bio.
Right. Okay.
That I sent you, and then
yeah, I'm gonna find that and I'll post it on the in the chat room. But otherwise, I mean, this has been a great show. I had fun.
Thanks for having me on. I had a blast. I'm glad that Shay was able to join us.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah. I'm sorry that she couldn't pop on the video because that would have been interesting to get some of like her insights into some of the descriptions and stuff. But yes, I'm glad that she popped in and was listening and could offer something in the chat room. That was great. So going forward, we are going to plan a camping trip. Just putting it out there. We are going to do that. Good. For spring of 2022. We're going to do a skeptical help bar event. That's going to be the first one because we haven't had any.
Why are you looking at me?
I don't know because you're next to me.
Oh.
We're going to do it. We're going to plan this out. Basically, it's going to be one date. I'm going to put it out there because I think what I'm going to do is make sure you, Shay, and the two of us here are good. And once we are good with a date, I'm going to put that out. And if anyone wants to come out and join us, then it's up to you. But I think that would be a fun night to hang out and ghost hunt and drink and try to not drown.
Wow.
Good. And you know what? Because the campground, I mean, it's literally right there. Because I drove. When I drove up the dirt road, I wasn't exactly sure where it was. And I just kept following the road and realized that it just circles. It goes into a circle and that's all your little camp spots. And I was like, oh, okay, let me find. Oh, there's the bathroom. So the little restroom building. And
so
I was like,
I have to bring a tent?
Yeah, we actually have to bring a tent.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else.
I'll sleep in the van.
There's a little building that has restrooms in it. There is there's one bridge or two bridges.
You got the tent. I got the van.
That's about it. So that's it.
One night I can do.
All right, people. You can hang out for a couple minutes. I'm just gonna do my announcements real quick, or Bob's announcements. And unless you have anything else you want to give a shout out to or anything? No? Good. So. Okay. Let me this is gonna cover just a part of you. That's all. Just a little bit of you. That's all right. Let's see. I have to fix this because there's not.
I can. No, that didn't help.
Oh, the other way. The other way. There we go. You're in.
There we go.
You know, like right there, he kind of looks a little like Keanu Reeves, doesn't he?
He does.
He does.
You have
a John Wick kind of look.
Definitely pull that off.
I
knew
you were on the show before, but I knew you looked familiar too. And I'm like, why do I know that? And now that you're saying, I'm like,
because I'm Keanu Reeves. That's why. Check out my new movie, Matrix 4.
Stunt double.
No, oh my God, I can't wait till that comes out.
You could be his stunt double.
All right, so basically, let's see. The first one, the top one, don't worry about that. September 25th, which is tomorrow. Both Donna and I will be at the Para-Unity Conference up in Woodbridge, New Jersey. I'm going to set up my Skeptical Help booth and be the token skeptic among the Shark Tank of ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts all over the place. And Donna will have her Lucky Tiki Creations craft booth set up. She will be selling a lot of stuff, so come check that out. Come up and say hi. I will be doing, I'll have my can out, taking donations for the Cancer Research Institute. So if you want to come by and ask a question or have a conversation, like ask some paranormal questions and get a skeptical opinion, all I ask is that you make some kind of donation. I don't care how much, into the can, and then we can talk as long as you want. So October 9th is the Selma Mansion Psychic Fair. Donna will be setting up her booth, Lucky Tiki Creations. I will be helping her and then roaming around and trying my best to annoy the psychics and not get kicked out. In the second week of October, because I do have to change this, I will be doing a course for the Rhine Institute with Lloyd Arabak. I'll be doing a course about a skeptical approach to parapsychology, and it's mostly him, but I'm going to be co-teaching this course with him and just bringing the skeptical viewpoint, at least my skeptical viewpoint, on various parapsychology topics and ideas and views and opinions and stuff like that. And that runs like 8 weeks, and it's every Tuesday night, I think from 8 to 10 or something like that. If you go to the Rhine Institute website, you can get more information there. And I think, one more thing. I have started my video series called Ghosts in the Machine, which is on the sign back here, right there, for Skeptical Inquirer. So my first video of that is up, and I'm going to be doing at least 2 videos a month for Skeptical Inquirer. So look for those. And if you like what I do, if you want to support me in some way, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can go up here to Patreon. I have a Patreon. There's 3 levels. One, you can just, I love you, Kenny. Here's a couple dollars every month. There's a next tier where you get some behind the scenes stuff. You get pictures. I post pictures and videos of stuff, like the video that I did at Braley Pond is up on my Patreon. So only Patreon members can see that. And then the highest tier is a bartender, where you actually get to pick a topic of the show. And if you so choose, you can be the guest to talk about that topic on the show. So pretty cool. I already support you, Kenny. I want John to visit me.
You can have them whenever you want, John.
Wow. See what happens?
I'll ship them out to you.
So that is my announcement. That's Bob's announcements for this week.
I think Bob fell asleep tonight. He was tired.
He was tired. I think he was drinking.
I think he's gone.
I think he was drinking a little too much. And yeah, he was feeling good. All right. So, Charles, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming out. Thank you for reaching out and suggesting this, because it's a good conversation. I never know where I'm going with this show, so it's nice to have a different kind of feel. And I never did true crime before mixed with paranormal, so I had a lot of fun. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And
thank you.
After your podcast comes out, we're definitely going to have you and Shay on.
Oh,
and
I think
it. Yeah, I think we're going to have like another show where we can talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could break it down, because everything will be out, so we could be a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, you can really get into some shit.
That could be a few sessions of breaking it down.
Yeah. Especially if we do the camping trip, and then we do it. Oh my goodness! Then we can talk about what happened to us, because someone's going in the pond. I don't know who, but someone's going in the pond.
It ain't gonna be me, or you're gonna find divorce papers.
All right. Stay on. I'm gonna play my outro video, and everyone else, have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be safe. Take care of each other, and remember, never stop learning. And I'll see you next week.
Yep.
Bye.
Good night, guys.